A watchman. A watchman is a creature of the presence. The Bible says God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. In Isaiah 35:15 thereabout, it said, truly thou art a God that hideth thyself. That is the dimension of him called Zephaniah. God hides himself. It takes time for him to unveil himself. So a watchman is someone who has the capacity to stay in the presence until God reveals himself. Because it is when God reveals himself that is when you become effective as a watchman. Because it is when God reveals himself that oracles, secrets can be committed into your hands. In Habakkuk chapter 2 and in verse 1, the prophet was saying, he said, I will stand upon my watch to see what he will say. The duty of a watchman is to tarry in God's presence until the heart of the Father is revealed. He said, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and I will watch to see what he will say unto me, what I shall answer when I am revealed. A watchman is a creature of the presence. You only know when you enter the presence, but if it's God you seek, you don't know when you will come out. And if you are determined, it is until he reveals himself, that is when you are permitted to live. That is who a watchman is. You are watching not just for yourself, not just for God, but also for them whom you are responsible for. So you are acting as an intermediary. You take of God and bring to the people, so that they can be forewarned if there are impending danger. Because we are all aware that our adversary, the devil, is as a roaring lion looking for whom to devour. He roams about endlessly, devising evil against the people of God. But you and I are limited. But if the watchman will pay the price to stay in the secret place, every plan of the devil can be unfolded or can be revealed, and the people can be warned. Isaiah 62 and verse 6, God actually deliberately set this man over his estate so that they can stand as a stool to bring peace and harmony. He said, I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold their peace day nor night. Ye that make mention of the Lord, keep no silence. Verse 7. And give him no rest till he establish, until he make Jerusalem a praise. Yeah. Watchmen are designed by God and set by God. Their duty is to ensure that God is troubled until his will is expressed. The reason why you need to be dogged as a watchman is because there are times that the forces of good and evil will not be balanced. So you will need to labor more in order to balance the force of good against the force of evil. So sometimes in a city or in a territory, there will be so much bloodshed and the will of God will be hanged. It takes the intelligence of the watchman to know what to do to bridge the gap. The reason why you are walking on the street and you will have the impression to give something to somebody or to do good to somebody, that is the strategy of the spirit to balance the force of good and the force of evil. Because when the force of evil is over the force of good, nature will lose its balance. So God deliberately orchestrates these people to stand on the gate and to watch, so that these people can be preborn. For those that will do this sufficiently, there are men that have the capacity to tarry in his presence. Who is a watchman? They are die-hard warriors. Die-hard warriors. A watchman is someone that watches over the estate of God and his people. So the number one thing that captures the attention of a watchman is the will of God. And the moment you discern the will of God, you commit your life to watching over that will until it is expressed. So every other person can do what they want and go where they want, not the watchman. Because there is an estate that have been committed into your watch, and as long as you stand, the will of God will prosper. But if you get tired and give up, the will of God will so fasten back. So a watchman is a dogged and a die-hard warrior. Why? Because every will of God have an antagonist. So if God appeared to you and he said, this is what I want to do, he may do. You think God like gossip? What he's trying to do is bringing to your notice that if this thing will come to pass, you need to be on your knees to let it. And as long as you are on your knees, that will prosper. But if you tire out, it will be delayed until God find another faithful person. So people like Enas, the prophetess, in the book of Luke chapter 2 from verse 36, the Bible describes her as someone that served the Lord with prayer and fasting day and night. What was she watching over? Over the prophecy of the promise of Messiah. 7 years after marriage, her husband died, and she lived 84 years. For 84 years extra, she was laboring on the altar, beckoning on heaven to fulfill the promise to save mankind. There was nothing else she did. She wasn't praying for husband. She wasn't praying for children. She discerned the will of God and she committed her life to it on the altar. And day and night, if it required dry fasting, she was willing to bring it to the table. If it required praying all day, she was willing. The Bible said day and night she served the Lord in prayer and in fasting. Such are the people that determine that this which the Lord have desired must be established. They watch over the desires and the will of Elohim. Same as the man Simeon rather, the Holy Ghost appeared to him and told him that he will not die until he see the salvation of Israel, and until Jesus was born. These ones are, hope you know, there was a time that there was no prophecy from Malachi to Matthew. There was no speakings of God, but not for these men. These men were so in tune with the movement of the Spirit that they knew what God was up to. So what they did was to commit their lives to it, and day and night they watched over the will of God in prayer. When it was time, Simon prayed a prayer because he was even tired of living this mortal life. He said, now lettest thy servant go in peace, for I have seen. He watched it until the day that it manifested, and immediately the will of God manifested. He knew his job was finished, and he told the Holy Ghost,